Good morning. I am Valarie Austin and the author of the Student's Comprehensive Guide for College and Other Life Lessons. I wrote the book to assist high school students and their parents to navigate the journey of careers in college. I am also the host of the Employer Speaks series, which is designed to highlight different careers and the paths to achieving those careers. Today we have a very special guest, Natalie Kauffman. She is a global career development strategist and the owner of Kauffman and Careers, LLC. Her professional mission is to inspire and empower individuals to achieve their career and life goals. In her 35 plus years in the field, she has traversed business, government, education, and nonprofit organizations. Natalie is a past Maryland Career Development Association president. To inform and guide others, she has written online for the Washington Post message boards as their resident work-life careers expert. Natalie also has received numerous accolades such as the Outstanding Career Practitioner Award from the National Career Development Association, as well as the Johns Hopkins University Heritage Award. I am truly honored to have her as my Employer Speaks guest. I hope that you will learn practical steps to identify and pursue the career of your dreams. Thank you for watching. And today I am hosting Miss Natalie Kauffman. And after 35 years in her career, she has a lot to tell us about that particular career path and why it would be a great opportunity for young people to actually follow that path. And I'd like to say good morning.
Good morning, everyone. It's a delight to be here.
Okay, great. And just jump right in. And my first question to you is, what is your professional background, your specific title, and how did you get to that particular path?
Well, I am someone who years and years ago, as a toddler, I used to run around with a little plastic medical bag, and I would listen to people's hearts and dole out candy from my little candy dispenser, and would use my pretend thermometer in folks' mouths, and also use my little shot to give someone a jolt of what was needed to cure their ills. And in high school, I discovered a book called The Terminal Man, and that made me think, oh my goodness, I want to go into neurosurgery. And I actually pursued that in college. I pursued a pre-med major, and I roomed throughout my freshman and sophomore year with a humanities major. And I specifically share that point because what I discovered throughout my years at college was that I really enjoyed my humanities major's friends. And I did not my fellow pre-med majors. And I got into medical school my senior year of college and decided not to go, much to the surprise of my parents and my grandparents.
I'm sure that was a shock, but it was more a matter of you were able to make a connection with those humanities friends versus the pre-med people.
I just love the deeper conversations. I love the people component. And my pre-med majors, fellow pre-med majors, were all about the plumbing component of the body, not what was going on in the mind that managed the body.
So was it a search for you to find your particular major then? Because you said you were a senior at that point. So
I was a senior at that point. So what I did was I went to my college career center for the second time in 4 years, okay? The first time was a requirement. Every student had to take a career test as a freshman. But what happened in going to my college career center and sharing that I got into medical school but am deciding not to go and I need help finding employment in the field that my undergraduate institution actually trained me for. My school was not about just getting a degree. It was also about training. So I did several internships while in school. So I asked for help in securing a position in animal research. And I put out my resume because this was back in summer of 1981 when I graduated, and I did not hear anything. And I sat by the phone and did not hear anything. And I
were experiencing what a lot of young people do experience.
And experience, especially now in the COVID crisis, in this COVID pandemic. And what I learned was that you can't just sit by the phone. And my mother-in-law to be happened to notice me sitting by the phone, questioned, what's going on with my job search. And she said, well, why don't you talk to my daughter's best friend from high school's father, who happens to be in pathology at one of the local hospitals in the Baltimore, Washington area. And I said, well, animal research has nothing to do with human pathology. She said, yeah, just go ahead and talk to him. And what I found out from this experience is that talking to people, getting yourself known, marketing self, explaining what you're after, looking for what you want, explaining the skills you're bringing to the table. In other words, identifying need and matching need with skills available was what it's all about. Do a nice hand clasp for yourself and you'll see this is really comfortable. This is wonderful. This is where I'm meant to be. So it's understanding self, understanding the work environment, and finding that comfortable match.
So it's not only the networking where you go out and you speak to people about what you would like to do, you also have to understand yourself in terms of the skill set that you can actually bring to whatever that career, whatever that occupation is, and which makes sense. So we're looking at, you were actually referred to someone, but we still don't get, how did you get to where you are now? What was the impetus?
Well, he was impressed. I knocked his socks off. But then he went on to say what I had told my mother-in-law when she first suggested I talk with him. And that was, well, Natalie, a pathologist has to do with human beings. We don't do anything with animal research. But because I was there in person, face to face, and today with COVID, it's not in person face to face. It's Zoom face-to-face.
Yeah.
It's Google Duo face-to-face. It's GoToMeeting face-to-face. So it's a little bit different today, but still to make that connection is important. And then next to most important is making sure you understand your competitive edge. So in doing that and explaining all of this, he said, well, let me think for a minute. And he said to me, my wife is best friends with the head of animal research at University of Maryland at Baltimore. And I said, oh, really? Talk to him, give him a call and say that, and let me give you my wife's name, say that she told you to call him.
Another one?
So I did that. And when I did that and I used that connection, because otherwise you're doing a cold call with someone, and especially in these pandemic times, but it's using a connection, a bridge, if you will, to connect with the person who has the power and authority to hire. Networking is wonderful, but unless you're connecting with the person who has the power and authority to hire, then it's just talking to a whole lot of people and spinning your wheels.
True. So as opposed to talking to someone who works at a company, you should be able to have them possibly refer you to the HR person, the human resources person, who has the authority to hire, has the authority to interview, and can put you into that shoot for a possible position.
Sometimes the HR person is not the best person to connect to, because although they are part of the hiring process, the person who does the hiring is the person who has the need in the department that does the work that needs to be done. So that's who you want to ultimately make your connections with.
So you have to get through that gate of the human resources to make sure that you can fulfill a need. That's why it helps to have looking on like something like Indeed.com, where you can see what the actual job description is, and then going to the HR person, you can tell them these are the particular competitive edge skills that I could bring to this particular position. Then the HR person will refer you to that particular department.
Exactly.
That's what it sounds like.
Exactly. And then what happened in talking with this person in charge of animal research at University of Maryland at Baltimore was he looked at my resume and he said, I don't understand why you're not working for me right now. This is amazing. And I said, well, I did apply with you all. And he said, well, when you applied, what did you put in the little box on the application where it says referred by? And I said, there was no little box on the application that said referred by. And he explained that, yes, indeed there was. And I said, well, I was told back at my career center in college not to leave anything blank on an application. So more than likely I put NA because no one was referring me. And he said, well, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go back to both HR departments. You're going to redo, because back then it was only paper applications, unlike the online applications. And you're going to put my name in, referred by. And you're not only going to do that here, you're going to go to all of the Johns Hopkins University HR departments, because Hopkins has multiple HR departments, and you're going to do the same for all of their HR departments. So that was with the School of Medicine, that was with the hospital, that was with the university off of Charles Street. I did all of that, and what occurred, because it took me a half hour to get from University of Maryland at Baltimore's interview to my home in Towson, where I was living with my in-laws to be. And by the time I got home, there were more than half a dozen interview requests on my phone.
Wow.
And it's
just for that little checking off of who referred you.
Not just checking off, putting his name down.
His name, yeah.
His name not only carried weight at University of Maryland, but also at Hopkins. And what I wound up doing after a slew of interviews was take a position at Hopkins with their School of Med, doing animal research on rhesus macaque monkeys.
So let me ask you this, not to take away from your explanation of what you did in that particular department and beyond, but what about the college student, or the one who doesn't have someone to refer them and be able to put their name down as a referral? What would be your career advice to them?
Every college student, because of the school where they attended, actually does have a built-in network through their career services office, their alumni office, and the faculty they interacted with during their time at school. Even those who have graduated 10 plus years ago and whose current economic livelihood is being affected by the current pandemic due to them being in the travel industry, the hospitality industry, and so on, okay? And they're thinking, oh, it's been more than 10 years, more than 20 years since I completed my undergraduate degree. You have your current department chairman as someone who could speak to the undergrad degree program that you were trained in. They are the spokesperson.
Wait a minute, we're talking about a cold call right there, where you're calling up the department chair. I graduated 10 years ago, and this was the major that I graduated with in the degree. Would you please be a referral to me for this particular position? And you're asking the department chair to do that?
You absolutely are. And you're not asking them to be a referral. You're asking them to be the spokesperson for the institution granting that undergraduate degree major. So it's not a cold call. What you're doing is you're allowing them to market what that institution's undergrad degree program is all about.
Okay.
That makes sense?
We're going beyond a letter of recommendation. We're going beyond I guess, a referral. We're actually saying under the gravitas that you're the department chair, that I graduated in this particular major, with this particular degree, and I'm standing on your shoulders to ask for help if that is the necessary need. Or the career development, the career center of the college too, could be that particular avenue also.
What happens with colleges is sometimes the department for a given position hears from alumni about opportunities. Sometimes the alumni office of a given institution hears about employment opportunities, and more often than not, the career services office hears about opportunities for recent undergrads, opportunities for recent grads, opportunities for alums who have been in the field for a while, opportunities for alums who might have transferred from one field to another, like I myself did. Because what happened when I was working for Hopkins was I discovered I didn't like doing what I was doing.
A lot of students find that out. A lot of people working in the field find that out.
And what was so wonderful about the place where I was working was I got to take graduate school courses for free.
Oh.
And I wound up getting from Hopkins a master's in applied behavioral counseling with a concentration in career counseling, which meant for me, unlike many folks who graduate with a counseling degree in 2020, that I took not just one career counseling course, as many counseling students do today, I took multiple career development courses. And as a counselor needing to maintain my credentials, I need to continue to do lifelong learning in my field. And that's one of the things that's also required, depending upon the field you're in, if you have credentials or you have licensure that you need to respond to every so many years, showing that you have done the necessary continuing ed for that program.
Well, that leads me to a question, because you are a member of the Global Career Development. You are a Global Career Development Facilitator. So that shows that you have the credentials and you've taken the curriculum. What other types of organizations are you a member of that tries to look for the ethics, the efficiency, the effectiveness as a career professional?
Yes, I'd love to talk with that particular topic further by asking you, if you would, connect to the National Career Development Association's website, ncda.org. If we could take a look at that, Valarie.
All right, I'm going to share right there.
Okay. If you scroll up for me to the very top of the screen, what you'll see is on the National Career Development Association website, you have several buttons from About NCDA to quick links. A lot of professional associations have similar types of websites. And what you want is to take a look at a professional association's website to find out more about what's needed in the field. So what we did to get to this page on the website was we clicked on resources and came down to need career help. And now what I'm going to ask you to do for me, Valarie, is click on consumer frequently asked questions. When you do that, and that's exactly correct, you can click on the next tab on your screen so we could look at that document that comes up when you look at what are the qualifications for a person in this field. General public doesn't understand the difference between a person who has licensure, a person who has certification, a person who has a master's in counseling versus a master's in any subject. If you look here, to be a certified career counselor, a CCC, you need a graduate degree in counseling, in psychology, in student personnel services, or related discipline. If you want to be a certified career services provider, that's 2 over, no minimum level of education required. However, many have earned a bachelor's and some even have a graduate degree. And then if you look further over, what you have is no minimum level of education, however, and so on. What you have to do when someone is connecting with you about providing services is not just ask if they have a certification, if they're licensed, but for licensure, it's coming from the state where you're seeking services. So Maryland's State Department has a organization within it that gives licensure. And when it comes to certification though, where is the certification coming from? My career counseling certification comes from both NCDA and a group called the National Board for Certifying Counselors. NCDA only recently got into the certification game. The National Board for Certifying Counselors existed way back in the early 80s when I got my degree from Hopkins in 1985. And the reason why NCDA got involved in the game is because what started to appear in the competition for career counseling services is coaching, career coaching, life coaching. Mm-hmm. Well, people could call themselves a life coach, a career coach, and that was it.
Not have any certifications, not having
no training,
they had no training, none of that.
Just the desire to want to help people, which is not a bad thing to have.
It was not.
But in helping people, what theoretical background are you going to help them with? And are you going to be able to understand the diverse culture that that person you're trying to help comes from?
So it has to be some type of standardization, basically, that you all have the same baseline of information, knowledge, and training.
And that's what NCDA tried to do in putting together these credentials. But there's the International Coaching Federation that certifies people as a coach. I myself have my, quote, career coaching certification from another entity. And why I say this is because what the career coaching training that I did was basically less than my master's degree from Hopkins with my concentration in career counseling. And it was less than because I did a master's program versus certification training. Some certification training is an hour, some a little bit more, some a few days, but most don't go beyond 120 hours or a single undergraduate course requirement, which is that 120 hours.
So with your name, you have behind it, you have, of course, you have your LLC, the Natalie Kauffman in Careers LLC, but you also have MS, you have FLD-I, you have the NCC, you have the NCCC, you have the GCDF, you have all of these various alphabet behind your name because you've acquired all of this certification and licensing.
Exactly.
And degree.
And degree, yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, with the educational requirement, we see it listed right here. if you're a young person and you're thinking about entering this particular career, any of these particular careers, what are some of the skill sets that would be required for that? What are we looking at in terms of their desire, their passion, the mental capability to do something like this? Because you have to talk to people, you have to listen to them.
Well, let's say, for example, that you're interested in this field. One of the things that I always recommend doing to folks interested in any field is talking to someone who's been doing it. But more importantly, talk to not just one person, but talk to someone who recently got into the field, someone who's been in the field for a few years, and someone who has 10 or more years experience. So a few years experience to no experience, just new, to 5 to 7 years experience to 10 years and beyond. And the reason why you're doing that is because you want to hear not only what's necessary today, but you want to hear some of the changes that have taken place. Because any profession today is not going to be forever and ever.
It's not static.
Any profession today is ever changing. My favorite quote is by Edwin Way Teal. And what he said is, what was is not and never again will be. What is change. And my goodness, isn't this what the current global pandemic with COVID is all about? We are having to flex and adapt as never before. Never before.
True.
And we can't predict what kinds of positions are going to exist beyond getting the COVID vaccine. Never mind what's possible today. But I can't tell you how many folks that I work with in my private practice, in the work that I do as a consultant, who are getting hired. Yes, it's possible to get hired in the pandemic. But going back to your question, so if I'm interested in a given field, I need to talk to people. Mm-hmm. Well, you also need to figure out skills. So let's take a look at another website put together by the U.S. Department of Labor and look at skills. When we're looking at any position out there, we're talking about what are the basic skills for a position, what are the complex problem-solving skills, what are the social skills required, what about system skills, and of course today, what are the technical skills required?
And this is found on ONET Online.
ONET Online, www.onetonline.org. When you get to the site, you go to the gray toolbar and you put your cursor on advanced search, which is green. And what pops up are a number of different components that go into job decision-making, one of them being skills. So we clicked on skills and this is what came up. And you could look this up for 155,000 position possibilities that this site has on it. This site was created in the early 90s based upon a book that was first published in the late 70s called The Dictionary of Occupational Titles. This book was 2 phone book sized books.
And now it's condensed to this.
And that was the predecessor to that in the late 70s. At the same time, positions are growing, other positions are going away. Recently, in 2000, some say late 2007, others say early 2008, okay? And what was going on in this great recession was that positions were being eliminated. Many of them were with folks who were in their late 40s to early 60s.
So let me,
printing went away.
Let me walk around to that. Let me walk around to that.
Sure.
What you do Give me day to day and how you interact with your customers, because it speaks to 2008 and also speaks to now, where people who have lost their job, they've been furloughed, and they're trying to figure out what they want to do, and it'll come back to this particular website. So day to day and how do you interact with your customers?
And what I'm doing some of the time is marketing to new potential individuals for my private practice, or marketing to potential contractors for my consulting work.
All right. And what do you do as a consultant? How do you help people?
Well, as a consultant, it depends upon who I'm consulting for. Recently, I had worked for the Department of Health and Human Services. I worked for that group. What they were looking for was to work with folks in their employment roles who were feeling stifled and stymied. They were feeling they weren't being recognized by their supervisors, that they weren't being asked to take that next position. They felt they were applying and the application for that next position wasn't being seen, wasn't being heard. And what I helped them discover was how they were talking about themselves in terms of what they are doing, and not in terms of meeting the needs of the new position that they were after.
Okay.
And they were astounded by this. Oh my goodness, oh, it makes so much sense now. And we actually used ONET quite a bit, because we looked at the difference in skill set between the position that they currently were holding and the position they were hoping to assume. And what you saw, if you go back to the previous screen again, what they saw was there was a difference in basic skills all the way through technical skills. They were talking about the technical skills they currently were using in the job that they held, but they weren't talking about the additional training that they did on their own with their own dime, okay, to learn the skills required of that new position they were after. They weren't talking about the teamwork they had been doing with other departments that demonstrated the complex problem-solving skills, resource management skills, system and social skills necessary for that new position.
So
they were
the epiphany is
tunnel focused on what they were doing. They weren't realizing that, oh my goodness, I have really spread out in the work that I do, but I'm not marketing that. So
not the job that I am. I have to market for the position that I want.
Exactly.
So how do you use this particular website then? How would you use this?
Well, let's take a look, if you will, at the next tab for ONET. It says ONET Online. Yeah, that one. This is the main ONET website, www.onetonline.org. onetonline.org. In the upper right corner, we put in a position, project management. And we put that position in because in that economic downturn, that Great Recession time period, 2008 to about half of President Obama's first term in office, this position became a real hot ticket item and continues to be so. Project management exists in multiple settings. You can be an IT project manager, you could be an engineering project manager, you could be a project manager in my field, career development, because when I did consulting work for Health and Human Services, Medicaid, Medicare services, what happened was I reported to a project manager to complete the necessary needs identified for that consulting gig. So let's go ahead and hit enter after we put in project manager. And what comes out in ONET is not just the first most often thought of position in this particular arena, project manager, and that's IT project management, but other kinds of positions that use a project manager. When you put in an ONET position in that open oval at the top right of the screen, what happens is the ONET U.S. Department of Labor immediately begins interpreting, well, if you want this position, you might also be interested in these other positions that you see here, because many of the tasks are the same. But a position is not just required tasks, a position is also the skills needed. And you already saw in the previous ONET slide we looked at the different types of skills needed. But there's also the knowledge needed. There's also the abilities required. And employers, when it comes to hiring those HR people that you talked about earlier as a good group to network with, and I said, well, no, not necessarily network, but they're part of the process in job search. What these HR people look at is, does a candidate have the necessary knowledge, skills, and abilities, or KSAs, to get the job done? What the hiring manager looks at is, what is a candidate's competitive edge? What is the proof the candidate has those knowledge, skills, and abilities? What occurred during the Great Recession or the economic downturn was we went from paper applications, we went from emailing resumes and cover letters to online applications. For the first time ever, companies were able to compare through technology one candidate's application materials to another. This was wonderful.
Those keywords came through where they could pull out particular keywords off of resumes.
Yeah, exactly. And let's take a look at that. Let's click on Information Technology Project Manager. When you do, what pops up is a summary report. But what I want folks to notice too, below summary report, what you have is a quick description of what that position does. Then, even more importantly, the sample of reported job titles. This is so important, especially for the folks right now in COVID who are not working. They're not recently graduated undergrad students or graduate students. These are folks who have been in the field for a while, and they're looking for their position title when they're job searching. Well, notice this position title has multiple other titles that it also goes by depending upon which organization you want to work for.
Cloud Product Director, Cybersecurity Project Manager. Yes.
Exactly, and so on. So when you're job searching, it's not only important to look for a title, one title, you need to understand all the titles that all the different organizations out there are calling it. But no matter what title you're using, the same tasks are required. The same knowledge, skills, and abilities are required. The same technical savvy is required. So you need to become familiar with the needs of what you're after. So when you talk about yourself, you're not talking about what you did. You're talking about, in language of the field that you're after, what you can do to meet the needs of the position you want, the position you're seeking. And if you click on the plus sign underneath tasks, right underneath that one right there, and scroll down a little bit for me, some of the buzzwords you're going to be using on your application, if project management is what you're after, is you're going to use manage, confer, monitor, as we go down, develop, establish, coordinate, negotiate. These are words that you use because this gets you through that computer scanning process that began in 2008. This doesn't necessarily, though, getting through the scanning doesn't necessarily mean you secure the position for an interview. It just means you get through the scanning process. HR passes on your resume to the department that has the need. And what the department with the need is doing is, okay, you're telling me you could do this. Now prove it.
Prove it.
What have you done that demonstrates you know how to manage projects? Was there a budget in mind? What was your budget? Were there folks that you coordinated with? Who did you work with? That proof needs to come across, so then when you get through the scanning and you're connected to your paperwork, that is, your paperwork is demonstrating you can do the job. And when you finally get that interview, you're having to put into place all of those words that are down on your resume. So many times someone will call me and say, I need help with a resume. Can you do my resume for me? I don't do anybody's resume as a
help you
career practitioner. What I do is I find out what that person is after. And if I get the answer that, well, I'm interested in doing some of the work I did in the past, which was accounting, but I'm also interested in doing sales. And I'm also interested in, so can you do a resume that will cover all that? Well, no, you can't. What you need is to tailor your resume to one target. You develop multiple targeted resumes, and you're still not there when you apply for a position. Because when you apply for a position, what you're having to look at is that organizations, that associations, that businesses' vision, mission, and head honchos goals to realize that mission.
So let me recap. Instead of it being a scatter shot,
right,
we're trying to target to a specific title or job that has been listed. And you don't just do it for one company, you do it to multiple companies looking at their particular titles.
Here you are with the tasks that you see in front of you. The reason why managed project management is up at the top is because most places that would hire a project manager want that person to be able to do that first task. But some organizations out there might want the person to do the very last task, negotiate with project stakeholders or supplies to obtain resources or materials. That's especially important for someone coming in as an assistant to a project manager. The reason why it's at the bottom is because the majority of people are not looking for that. But the company that you apply for with the exact position you're applying for might want that more than anything else. So if you're putting together a resume, that's going to come to the top for that particular organization because that's what they most want.
So targeted versus scattered toward that particular position for that particular company, and do more than one.
Right.
Those targeted resumes. Now let me ask you this.
Sure.
Young person graduating and they have the credentials. What type of entry-level types of jobs would they have as a career development strategist? What type of entry-level jobs? What would they be doing?
Well, one of the things is you would potentially from high school be able to do some career development work. You could work with the National Career Development Association to get credentialed as a student support person. If we go back to the tab that showed our columns, one right there, the Certified School Career Development Advisor. No minimum level of education. Many have a bachelor's. So let's say someone from high school is thinking one day they'd like to be a counselor working in a school system. They could go to NCDA, look up who's providing this training, the CSCDA training, and they could take this coursework. And they could go to their local school's guidance department and say, I would like to volunteer to do this. And all of a sudden, with their credential and volunteering, they're gaining experience in the field. They have the credential. the theoretical background to do, and they get employed in the very place they're volunteering, which many times happens to folks in undergraduate institutions like the one I attended that said, it's important to not just get your degree, but you need to get training in the field. Many times folks who intern get employed by the place where they intern.
So it's interning or volunteering or externing.
What's most important is getting field experience, no matter what word you use, because like you saw with job titles, employers call this different names. They call it volunteering, they call it externships, internships, they call it field experience, what have you. What's so important with employers is what proof, what have you done that demonstrates to me you can do what I have need-wise. So it's understanding an employer's needs, it's understanding the language of the field, it's getting the appropriate training so that you are on paper, in networking and in interviewing, showing you have KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities, and you also have the appropriate use of the buzzwords in the field, and you have the necessary credentials. Some it's an undergraduate degree, others it's an undergraduate degree in a specific area. For example, if you want to go into accounting, your undergraduate degree should not be English. But if it was English, if it was English, you might have gotten a concentration in some business courses. And that accounting position that's available might be working for an author, and that author really wants someone to understand what their field is all about. So your undergraduate degree is more attractive than if it were just an accounting major. It always depends on context.
True. And in that vein, with the context, for the college graduate, for the person who's been out in the work field, COVID-19 has stopped them in their tracks. What are your last words of advice to get to where they want to be?
Make sure you have researched your field. Make sure you have researched the organizations you're interested in. Make sure that you are doing your virtual networking and you're understanding the spider web of networking. So that's what I'm going to leave everyone with, the spider web of networking. There you are in the center of the spider web. You're the spider. And in being the spider, the immediate area closest to you is all people who you know. In my instance, when you heard about my first job with my undergraduate degree, it was my sister-in-law to be's best friend from high school's dad who let me use his wife's name to talk to someone in the field that I had the background for. Look at that networking. Who would have thought, right? But that's how it is over and over and over again. In the work that I've been doing for the past 30 years, that's what it has shown me over and over and over again. So you're talking to everyone you know. The next layer out there in your spider web, and picture that spider web. See yourself in the center of that spider web as a spider. The next layer out there is all people in the field you're interested in. So you're talking to people. You might have put together a resume. It might not be the best resume, but it's the beginning. So you're talking to folks in the field you're interested in pursuing. Eventually, that outer layer of the spider web is the folks who have the power and authority to hire. When I use the name of the person from University of Maryland at Baltimore with the power and authority to hire, and his name went on my application down in HR at University of Maryland at Baltimore, went down on my applications, multiple, at Hopkins, multiple HR offices, half hour to get home, I had more than half a dozen calls and they kept on coming in for interviews. I was able to select which position I wanted. In COVID, it's the same kind of thing. Folks are getting employed everywhere who can demonstrate that they know the language of the field, who can demonstrate that they have the knowledge, skills, and abilities of the field, who have the credentials needed for the field, and most importantly, can prove through whatever they're calling their field experience, externship, internship, volunteering, prove that they can get the job done. Okay, sound good?
Sounds very, very good. And Natalie, Natalie Kauffman, I want to thank you so much for being here, for giving us your 35 years of experience in almost 45 minutes to the people who are out there looking for a job. You've given them that pathway to what they need to do. And I really want to thank you for giving up your time for this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. And goodbye, everybody.